welcome to this video. It's a little bit different of a setup. I just really feel like standing today, so that's what I'm doing. But welcome to this video. It is my reading wrap-up for the month of November. So I'm going to share with you all the books that I read, all my thoughts on them, and everything. So, I read a lot of books in November. These are them right here. There are 7. So, let's just go ahead and get started. The first book I read is Saga Volume 7. I've been making my way through the Saga series this year, and this is a sci-fi graphic novel series that kind of is like Romeo and Juliet. I feel like that's how I always explain it, but it's so much more, and it's way more heavy on the sci-fi than the romance. For the past couple of volumes, I've been kind of feeling meh about them, but this one I really loved. I actually cried reading this one. I mean, that ending, I need the next one, pretty much. I really liked the addition of the trans character. I felt that really added a lot more diversity to this already pretty diverse story. And I like that we're finally getting back to the war and seeing how serious it is getting. I feel like we're definitely coming to like the climax of the war, and it's very exciting. There is one character that I'm just kind of done with, and that is the Will. I feel like his character and his storyline isn't really needed anymore, and I'm just tired of him. Like, I'm at this point where it's like, he's almost died multiple times. I feel like he should just stay dead at this point. Sorry. I liked the Will in the beginning, but I'm just not liking him anymore. But I still gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a book I've been meaning to get to for such a long time. Pretty much all year I've been trying to read this book because everybody is talking about this book and everybody loved this book. And I was just like, I have to read it. And thank God I did, because this was actually the book that helped me get out of my reading slump. But I 100% loved this book, and I agree with everything that everyone else says about this book because it is fantastic, and I want everybody to read this book. So this follows Evelyn Hugo and her life pretty much, and why she has had 7 husbands and what her life was like with all 7 husbands. But she is telling this story to Monique, who is a journalist and a writer, and she is giving it to Monique to be like, make the story about my life, write it as a book and sell it and make tons of money off of it, pretty much. So Evelyn Hugo's already now an older woman. She was Hollywood's biggest starlight from like the 30s or like the 20s till still to like present day. So many emotions, so many feelings. While reading this book, I cried. There were a couple times where I laughed. I just really loved all of the characters. I felt like I really felt invested in them, and I felt like I really connected to every single one of them, and they all felt so real, and they felt like friends of mine. It was crazy how much I really felt towards these characters, and I actually really loved the main character's voice. I loved Evelyn as a person. I mean, yeah, sometimes she makes bad decisions and she's flawed, but I truly, truly loved her voice and hearing her story from her. And I also loved the way that the story was told. It was kind of told through flashbacks, so it was kind of historical fiction, but also kind of takes place now. And also the reveal at the end. Like, I did not see that coming. That was a shocker. The whole time I'm reading, I'm trying to figure out how Evelyn Hugo is connected to Monique. It's just such a shocker of a story, and you just get so invested in these characters and so invested in the storyline. I truly, truly, truly loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is Whiskey in a Teacup by Reese Witherspoon. This is just like a very beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, colorful book. Like, even the back and the inside, like, this is just, it's a gorgeous book, and I love it. So this is pretty much just like a lifestyle book written by Reese Witherspoon. So we got like recipes in here, we've got little stories, we even have like stories about gardening, and we have stories about hosting a party. We have some playlists in here. Like, it's just pretty much a lifestyle book by Reese Witherspoon, kind of in a very, like, southern twist to it. But I also really liked that this was kind of like a memoir as well. So I love Reese Witherspoon. She is like a queen to me. And so I was very, very excited to have a lifestyle book by her. By the way, I feel like I am now too far away from the camera and I don't like it. I'm gonna see if I can move this camera forward. Yeah, I think I like that better. Sorry for the drastic camera angle change. I just really felt like you were too far away from me. But yeah, so Reese Witherspoon's Whiskey in a Teacup. Really, really loved this. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is my nonfiction pick for the month, and that is The Defining Decade: Why Your 20s Matter and How to Make the Most of Them Now by Meg J. Another book, again, that I really enjoyed reading. This is pretty much just a book that tells you how to live your 20s and how to make the most of your 20s. AKA, it's exactly what it says right there. That essentially is what it is, and it's broken into 3 different parts. You have work, love, and body. So pretty much your career, and then how to make the most of your love life, and then how to make the most of staying healthy in your body. And it's great. I truly loved this book a lot. I feel like this is required reading for anyone who's in their 20s. This book, like, really pushed me. As I was reading it, I felt so motivated to, like, do the things that she was saying. So that was something that not a lot of these types of books have been doing for me, so I'm glad that this one did that for me. I also really liked the writer's writing of it. I felt like she was actually talking to me, and she also had a few, like, case studies here and there with, like, examples, and even though, like, I couldn't really connect too much with the case studies, I still, like, learned something through the case studies and through what these people that she has dealt with in real life were going through. I could resonate with what was learned through that. This book also, you know, there was a lot of thinking during and after reading this book. Just, I felt like my brain was just, like, working and working and working. I really loved the sections on work and love, but for some reason the section on body kind of lost me a little bit. I don't know if it's because it got too sciencey and I just can't ever focus or understand science. But overall, truly love this book. If you're in your 20s, you need to read this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was a book that I was not quite planning on reading, but I got it for super cheap, so I couldn't pass it up. And that is The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. And it's huge. It's around, like, 500 pages, but it only took me 2 days to read because it is mainly pictures. This is a children's book that takes place in the 1920s, 1930s? Doesn't say, but somewhere around that time. And we follow this boy, Hugo, who is living in a train station trying to, like, just fix the clocks. And him and his dad used to work on clocks and machines and gears and stuff together, and so his dad had died trying to fix this robot that he found, and he believes that the robot, once Hugo fixes the robot, he can see what message his dad left for him. But it ends up sending him on this adventure and this journey, and he meets a girl who ends up becoming a good friend, and they, like, do this adventure together. And I just really loved this story. I was not expecting myself to really love this book and to really feel for the story as much as I did. But I really love the use of pictures and words to tell the story, but also I love that they mixed it in with, like, very early film works and movies, because, I mean, I went to film school. I learned all about the, like, first movies ever made, and this really had, like, it was such, like, old-timey movie. And even just, it wasn't just, like, about old-timey movies. It also felt like it was written to be a story for an old-time movie. That makes no sense. It makes sense in my head, but I feel like it didn't make any sense coming out of my mouth. But no, I truly loved this story. I loved this adventure. It was so fun. I know everybody is like obsessed with Brian Selznick's artwork. Here's an example of one. But for some reason, I wasn't really quite keen on it. And I feel bad because I feel like everybody loves Brian Selznick's artwork. And I'm just like, it's okay. I definitely do want to read more by Brian Selznick. But I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read, Dear Evan Hansen by Val Emich, Stephen Levinson, Benj Pasek, and Justin Paul. This, if you have not heard, is a musical on Broadway. It's a musical I really want to see live. I already have like practically all the music memorized. I've been listening to the soundtrack nonstop for the past couple of months. I truly love this musical, this show, this music. And so when they came out with the novelization of that musical, I was very excited. I went to the book signing for it too. It was a very exciting time. For those of you who don't know the story of Dear Evan Hansen, this follows a boy named Evan Hansen. He has anxiety and a lot of stuff. They don't really go too in depth about what it is, but he has trouble talking to people and he has trouble really making friends, so he doesn't really have any friends. So this kid at his school, Connor Murphy, he doesn't have a lot of friends either, and he's kind of a bully, but he always kind of sticks to himself as well. But he ends up committing suicide. Connor Murphy's parents end up finding a letter on his son that says, Dear Evan Hansen, blah 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 blah. So his parents go to go to Evan Hansen, and they're like, so you were his friend, he really loved you, he wrote this note for you. And Evan Hansen is looking at this note and he's like, I wrote this note. Connor like took it from me. I don't know how to explain books. I'm terrible at this. Anyway, so Evan Hansen ends up getting caught in this lie that he was friends with Connor, but also we deal with the family of Connor and Murphy who are grieving in their own different ways. And Evan Hansen ends up starting getting friends. He starts coming more out of his shell. But of course it is all a lie and he is living with that guilt. There's pretty much a lot going on with this story. I really loved getting to know the story in a whole different way because there are some things that they added to the book that like you can't see through the musical version. And I really love that aspect about it, and I really truly love this story. It's such a beautiful, tragic story. The main character, I really like him as a character a lot, and I feel like he's a character that I don't think I would resonate with, but I resonated with him and I related to him so much more than I thought I would. Another thing that I really love about this novelization is that they added stuff from Connor Murphy's perspective, so we learn a lot about Connor Murphy that we did not know from the musical, and loved it. If you love the musical, I highly recommend reading the book version of it too. It is just absolutely wonderful. Yes, the only issue I really had with this book was that it was very slow paced. Like, it went very, very, very slow. I felt like it took me forever to read this book, even though it's relatively a pretty short book. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then the last book that I read is The Proposal by Jasmine Guillory. This is also my book of the month pick for the month. And I was just really in the mood for like a light, fluffy romance, and that's exactly what I got. I really did like this story a lot. We follow Nick, who is at a Dodgers game, and her boyfriend of like 5 months, who she doesn't actually really like that much, proposes to her on the Jumbotron, and she says no. So then people are getting mad at her all around her until, kind of can't remember his name, Carlos comes over and like saves her. He's like, hey, let's get out of here. And then from there it kind of sparks a little bit of a romance, not too much. It's just kind of like friendship, but they also can't like stay away from each other. Like they just really like being around each other, whatever. Sends them on this romance journey. And I really liked the story. I just felt like the writing was A, slow paced, and B, very bland. I really loved the characters, but I also felt like the character development was so weak. I was a fan of the story, but not of the writing, and I wasn't a fan of the execution. Pretty much. Also, it's a pretty predictable story, but that's kind of what I was in the mood for, so I totally didn't mind. I felt okay about it, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please go also check out my movie wrap-up for the month of November, as well as my just overall monthly wrap-up for the month of November. And subscribe, like, I don't know, all the things. Whatever you want to do. You don't have to do them. But yeah, definitely go check those out. And I will see you guys soon with some more videos.